Right now it is time for our visit with our good friends at the BerkshireEdge.com. That's where you can find them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We welcome in once again Marcy and David. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Well, I'm just fine, even though I walked out with a little bit of snow on the ground, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Well, we haven't had it here.
No, it's been warm. Here it's about 70 degrees up here. I don't know what's going on down there in Connecticut.
All right. Well, let's get to some of the stories that we like to highlight that you'll find at the BerkshireEdge.com. We lead off with the two South Berkshire school districts, Monument Mountain and Great Barrington in the Southern Berkshire Regional School District, and they've received a grant from the state.
They have. This has been a long-term effort and discussions for many years about merging the two school districts. And of course, you know, they're in a way rivals on the athletic field, for example, and but they finally come to the conclusion that perhaps it would be better to have one unified school district for Southern Berkshire County, and that's what they're seriously going about figuring out how to do, and they have a grant from the state to move that along. It's been a long, you know, they're rivals actually, and you know, as with lots of organizations and institutions, they treasure their independence from one another, but the time has come when you know, there are just not enough students in each of the districts, especially the Southern Berkshire district, that to sustain a regional school district.
So what are they going to do, play against each other? They're going to divide?
No, they're not. They're going to have to merge somehow. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes along with it that people don't realize when you're talking about bringing school districts together and merging them. Exactly that. You've got, you know, former opponents on the field. There's a lot. They're going to use every bit of that $125,000 to try to figure it out.
Well, not only that, they have you know, school committee members. You know, there's only going to be in a merged district. There'll only be one school committee. Yeah. But they've talked about this for many years.
Yeah.
In any case, they'll try to figure out how to combine this district, and it may be some kind of you know, different kind of model than they've used, a hybrid model. That, anyways, the two school districts are going to school committees are going to explore this. You know, and it is the Southern Berkshire School District, and Monument Mountain includes Stockbridge and Great Barrington, and Southern Berkshire is, you know, Sheffield and towns near New Marlborough and towns near the Connecticut border. So, you know, it's quite to have a merged district. It would be quite a large. It would be a large geographic entity, and you know, you have to think about busing, and the kids having you know a very long bus ride in the morning to get to school. Yeah. So that's come up before when one of the or other of the districts have considered closing one of their elementary schools. You know, quaint and you know, as they are, they've had to close several schools that only had a few students in them. So.
And the other problem is that this money, this is a grant under the State Department's Department of School Reorganization, or the School Reorganization Program, and it has to be spent by June 6th, or June 30th, rather. Sorry. So that they have to do something quickly to accept this money, and they got a $50,000 grant a couple of years ago in 2019 in order to complete phase one of this work. So they presumably have been, with that original $50,000 grant, have been working on this since 2019. But they have to complete it by June 30th, so that's not very far away.
All right. I want to move on to your next story, because when I received the press release from Tanglewood, even though it came with a pretty big headline when you read into it, it's still a question mark. But when I posted it on our social media pages, almost 3,000 people looked at it, because everybody wants to see Tanglewood open up this season.
Yeah,
Everybody. And like I said, when I first saw the top of the press release, I felt really good about it. But then getting down into it, it's it's still a sticky wicket.
Yeah.
Well,
as our writer says, time to get your hopes up, but not necessarily to be sure.
Yeah. Well, Tanglewood, draws so many people to the Berkshires that, they kind of they're kind of the key factor in whether there's going to be whether other organizations would open, and during this pandemic. But the BSO is going to try to have a kind of, as I say, a kind of hybrid situation here. Some kind, as our writer David Edwards says, it's some kind of Tanglewood season.
Yeah, but
they're just not making it clear exactly yet what it's going to be.
And they apparently they will later this month. They're waiting till their board of trustees approves the details later this month.
Yeah.
But they are ordinarily, local schools have graduation events at Tanglewood. That's not going to happen this year. The traditional June popular artist concerts is not happening this year. But Mr. Volpe, who is the outgoing director of the orchestra, says that it's too soon to count out James Taylor on July 4th. So apparently they're going to try to go ahead with by July 4th. And the orchestra, has not played before a live audience for over a year. So I think, although they have done video concerts,
which you
in
can
an
stream.
empty orchestra hall.
Yeah.
So
I think the players are chomping at the bit too.
But you not only talk about Tanglewood, but on the other theater, you've got two other theaters, Barrington Stage and also Wham in Pittsfield.
And also Berkshire Theater Festival.
Yeah.
Right. All trying to. I mean, they've all announced very, limited seasons, but they are doing things this summer. I think intense with small audiences and small casts.
Yeah, for example, the Barrington Stage has its annual 10th annual 10 by 10 play festival, which is 10 plays in 10 minutes. They're all 10-minute plays.
Well, it's funny.
It's really wonderful, actually.
It's funny because Sharon Playhouse is doing that this summer as well.
Yeah.
10 by. Are they doing 10-minute plays?
Yeah, 10-minute plays, 10-minute plays. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And they're just delightful, but they're going to try to pull this off as well. So everything has been, everyone is scrambling to make some kind of season happen, but given the complications of the COVID pandemic, and it means a lot to the Berkshires. I mean, it's just, the Berkshires, in a way, the economy here relies upon an active summer season to get through the winter. We're like squirrels collecting acorns during the summer.
Well, no, it's that same way with the restaurants. The two major,
exactly.
It's just, and they've been, and you look at movie theaters as well. I mean, those are three parts of our local economy that have just literally been
and you
crushed.
look at the Mahawi Theater
Yeah.
in Great Barrington too. I mean, besides movie theaters, I mean that has been the center of cultural life in in South County for the 10 years since its renovation, and they're not open either.
Yeah.
And they, I suspect I mean, I have indication from them that they are not likely to be open this summer, although they are going to do their drive-in movies that they did last year. But, they're afraid that people won't come in, even if they opened. Will people come inside so soon? So Tanglewood has the advantage that they're outside.
Yeah. Well, we focus a little bit on WHAM Theater, the WHAM Theater organization, which is moving forward too with its season, and up in Pittsfield, and so they're at least considering. They have one play that they're going to put on is Letters to Kamala.
Is that Kamala Harris?
Kamala Harris,
Yeah.
yes. And so she's Kristen Van Ginhoven is the producing director, and they're trying to put their season, some kind of season together. So I think we all have to stay tuned and see just what is going to be able to be put on this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they're all these places are just dying to, I mean, they need the money for one thing.
Yeah.
I think that people were very generous last year. I think that people realized what they were missing, and they were very generous. But I think everybody's afraid to count on that same generosity this year. It's gone on. It's no longer new. So they really have to get out there and perform and sell tickets. Even though the tickets, are only usually for a nonprofit organization are like 25% of revenue, they still depend on the generosity of donors. But you got to keep yourself in front of the public.
Well, WHAM Theater is doing an interesting season. They're focusing on the racial, as the artistic director Talia Kingston puts it, a lot of racial reckonings that have happened this year.
Right.
And so they're having plays that focus on that.
And they also are, they are dedicated. I mean, WHAM is really about women,
Yep.
writers, women, plays about women. So they have a particular niche.
Yep.
All right, I want to move on to your next story. We only have about 6 minutes left. We got a couple more stories we want to go on to, and that is the Flying Church.
Oh yes,
The Flying Church. Oh my gosh.
Well,
it's aptly named.
It's not its official name, although I think the owner is now sort of adopting its official name. But this was a church on Main Street in Great Barrington that the developer bought, and then he raised it up. He raised it up a story so that he could build a floor underneath for retail, and the upper story is more a performance space and possibly a restaurant. But he started it in about 2018, and then he got sick, and then COVID started, and so this church was up on these pillars for a much longer time than expected. So people started to call it the Flying Church.
Yes, it was reaching for heaven and would take off at any moment.
But actually, the building is completed, and it's really beautiful. It's a very attractive building with a steeple on top. And next to it, on the same land, he's built a little one-story building, which is going to be a coffee shop, and it's very cute. It's got scalloped
It's a little complex right off Main Street in downtown.
Right on Main Street.
On Main Street,
right. And also down, on the end of Main Street that was less developed. So it's there are there were almost two parts of Main Street. There was the southern part and the northern part, and this is the northern part of Main Street, which now has a complex of stores on its own. So I think Main Street is going to be much extended.
All
which
right.
is great.
Yeah. You've got a good news story here, and that is the Bags of Hope.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. It's a group of high school students who started organizing these donations for the St. Joseph Shelter, and it's a sweet story about these kids who just took charge of this idea and executed it beautifully.
Yeah, and they're from all over the county, so it's really interesting. In fact, one of them is a girl named Keely O'Gorman, whom we know actually.
And her mother, Rachel O'Gorman, writes reviews, audio book reviews
for us. Yeah, it's her daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's one last story though that I'd like to touch on, which is there is this so-called there's a movement now called Change Berkshire Culture. We mentioned it once before, where the employees of cultural organizations have sort of banded together on a Facebook page to complain about their rate of pay and the stress of the work and the overpaid and overworked and underpaid. And so Sheila Clary, who's a very interesting writer of ours, is doing a series on the cultural economy and whether it's fair to its employees. And this time she looks at workers at Mass MoCA as an example. So that's a very interesting story. I mean, it's a three-part series, David?
Yeah, three-part. This is the second part. And she calls it the Change Berkshire Culture.
Right.
But so many of the workers in these cultural organizations are working for minimum wage, and it's a stunning look at the actual workings of the so-called cultural economy, which people here in the Berkshires have been so proud of, and that it's such an attraction. But on the other hand, the actual employees of these cultural organizations are just not making much of a living. So as I say, it's a stunning look at this.
And it's
what the real economy of the cultural economy is about.
People are willing to work for nonprofits for less money, but what happens when you run into the situation like we've been in, where the nonprofits basically cease having any income, even their grants go down over the course of a year, the first ones that are going to get hurt are the employees, and the first employees that are going to get hurt are the ones that are not in significant big positions and do work for a lower salary. It's it's
the employees who do the work when the work needs to be done, but this year it doesn't need to be done, so they're very vulnerable. There was an article, I think it was in the Times the other day, about the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. They're in a big labor dispute now because they haven't worked. I mean, these people haven't worked in a year, and they haven't been paid in a year. And now the Metropolitan Opera wants, is saying, we'll pay you now if you'll take less. And they're saying, no, we can't afford it. We've been out of work for a year, and now you want us to, take less going forward. And so, it is a big problem.
Well, it's one of those things that, as I was saying earlier, we only have about a few seconds left, but coming out of the pandemic doesn't end. You will slowly evolve. The pandemic will be around. The COVID-19 and all the variants are going to be around for years. So we'll slowly evolve out of it. and the people that are affected the most are the people that have lost jobs, and
Yep.
it's really hard to predict when they'll get those jobs back.
Right.
Well, the most important, this is what's really interesting about this story, is that this is based on the fact that Mass MoCA's workers
Yeah.
are trying to unionize.
With the AFL-CIO, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be interesting because if they do, that's going to send shudders through the nonprofit universe.
It
in the
sure
Tri-State
is.
region.
Right.
Certainly is.
Because I can tell you right now, we can't pay union wages. Okay,
No. No.
we don't pay ourselves, as a matter of fact.
No. Well, we are in the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
situation.
Are you going to unionize down there at the radio station?
You and Jill.
Probably have to. All right. Well,
David and I are forming a union of the non-paid.
that's what I was going to say, the non-paid union. Well, all right, guys. Well,
Okay.
once again, the BerkshireEdge.com is the website, and we'll speak to you guys next week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take
Bye.
care. That is the Berkshire Edge on air here on Robin Hood Radio, and once again, you'll find them at the BerkshireEdge.com.